Which NFL teams will be way worse this season? I know, as fans, we don't want to admit when our team is going to decline. We don't like to see the foreshadowing of a team regressing to the mean the following season. We like to live in fantasy land. But we must admit, when a team is simply not as talented, as good, or going to be flat out as lucky as they were last year. So in this video, I'm going to give you the teams that I believe are most likely to be worse in 2024 than they were in 2023. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more NFL offseason topics just like this. And hop in the comment section below, man, and let me know your thoughts. Bring your fandom to the comments and tell me why I'm a jabroni for doubting your favorite team. Let's begin in alphabetical order with the first team I believe might be worse than last year. Again, a lot of these are hypotheticals. I'm going to talk through why these teams could be worse. And let's begin with my beloved Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, which I might be making a video about the Bills. Separate video about Josh Allen, all that stuff, because I've had a lot of disagreements with you people in the comment sections, especially about number 17. But the Buffalo Bills probably are going to be worse this year. And it sucks because I think the NFL is better when their best quarterbacks are playing on good teams. But the problem is that the Bills are simply not that good of a team. When you look at their current product, the roster, I think the defense has kind of been slimming down the last couple of seasons. The depth, the quality of players at every level has just been battered and bruised and removed from the Buffalo Bills. I just don't see how the pass rush is as good without Leonard Floyd. I'm not expecting a rejuvenation from Von Miller. I don't really think that the secondary is elite like it was maybe a couple years ago. I definitely felt there was a drop-off last year, despite Rasul Douglas coming in and playing well. And I do like some of the additions they've made, as well as the re-signings. I feel like they still got quality players, but this is not Micah Hyde in his prime. This is not Tre'Davious White in his prime. This is not Jordan Poyer in his prime, right? Like, this is not the secondary it used to be. It's probably fairly average, maybe slightly above average in terms of secondaries in the NFL. Matt Milano is back, but how good is he going to be off a significant injury at a little bit of an older age? So this defense, I kind of feel, is going to be pretty mid in 2024, just on paper. Now, McDermott usually gets a better product out of this unit than anyone really believes they have kind of talent-wise, but then come playoff time and come big performance time, they usually don't play that well. So you have to judge this unit based on the teams they play at times. The offense just doesn't have enough firepower. You know, besides Josh Allen's own legs and arm, I don't really see who's going to be fueling this offense and the production of the passing game. Is it going to be Dalton Kincaid? Is it James Cook out of the backfield? Is it Curtis Samuel, an NFL regular number 3? Is it Khalil Shakir, who's probably another NFL number 3? Is it a rookie in Coleman? I just don't see it. I think the O-line is kind of average, and Josh Allen kind of negates a lot of the issues they have because he's so elusive and so powerful and he's tough to sack. And yeah, Josh Allen will carry them to probably 9, maybe 11 wins at max. But I just don't see how this team is a real threat in 2024 like they were viewed in 2023, 2022, 2021, and even 2020, right? This team has kind of removed themselves on purpose from the contender status. They're sort of retooling, rebuilding. They're still going to be good, but I just don't see them being potent in 2024. That is where they're probably going to lose a step. The next team is the Cleveland Browns. This is kind of a surprise shocker pick, but we have to remember that the Browns were 11-6 in 2023. And this one was probably my least confident entry to this video, but allow me to explain why I could see the Browns being worse. First of all, the Browns, just as an organization and as a history, even under Kevin Stefanski, have been sort of up and down. One year they're good, the next year they're not as good. One year they're good, the next year they're not as good. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, they kind of had a miracle run last year due to a quarterback, Joe Flacco, who is playing outrageous football for a stretch of time. And I just don't see that happening. Secondly, their defense for a majority of the year was dominant. And yes, they have the same players, or at least very similar. If not, they've added a couple extra. But here's the thing. Defense is largely not reliable from season to season. And especially defenses that are super dominant one year often fall off the next. And even if they just fall off to, let's say, the 7th best defense in football, that's going to change the landscape of this team. Now, Browns fans are going to argue that Mitch, their offensive line was hurt. Nick Chubb was hurt. All this stuff, right? And I totally agree. And that is the case for why they could be better. Deshaun Watson could be looking closer to what he was early in his career. But what if Deshaun Watson is just toast? What if he just sucks, right? Like, what if he's just what he's been for Cleveland? Then we've got a problem. We've probably got the worst quarterback in this division at the very best third, right? We've got probably just a team that's reliant on a running game that's led by a running back that's getting older and coming off a major injury, an offensive line that's aging and now injury prone, and a receiving core that I like a couple of the pieces, especially Cooper and Njoku, but kind of overrated, in my opinion. I'm talking to you, Jerry Jeudy. So I could see Cleveland being really good because they have a ton of talent. They've got a great pass rush. Love their secondary. I think their coaching is solid. Stefanski, Schwartz. But I also could see how they could be picked apart. I could see how they could regress. Because 11 wins is not easy to replicate in the NFL, especially considering your division last year had a super terrible situation in Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not going to be as bad as they were last year, right? And I understand Cleveland plays Cincinnati well, but still, that's going to maybe push the Browns down a notch potentially. The Steelers did get better arguably in the offseason, but the Steelers are another team just like Cleveland where they were kind of very fluky to make it to the playoffs, right? It's kind of like, what? How did they make it? Like, look at the quarterback conversation there, right? Baltimore might be a tad worse, but they're still going to be one of the better AFC teams. So you look at the AFC North, it's loaded. You look at the class of the AFC, it's loaded. So if they just don't play as well on defense, and that corresponds with the quarterback not playing well, it's going to be tough for them to compete in an AFC that is super competitive. So that's where my argument lies for the Cleveland Browns. And you guys let me know what you think about that one, because I think they're going to be a team that a lot of people pick to go to the playoffs, but I could easily see that. I might even pick them to make the playoffs. Okay, let's be fair. But I could easily see them kind of hurting our feelings. Okay, next up, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are like the first entry on my list for this video. The Dallas Cowboys will be worse in 2024. First of all, the Cowboys are even more so than the Browns, like a clock. They're good one year, they're not as good the next. They're really good the next year, and they choke. And then they're not as good the next. They're good after that. And then they're, not as good the next. And then they're really good, right? So here's the thing with Dallas. They've actually been fairly consistent as of late. in terms of regular season performance under Mike McCarthy. But they have never seen the turnover of their roster that they have this offseason. The last couple of years, they've actually been building talent through the draft, through the free agency, adding a couple of veterans like Gilmore and Cooks, to the mix last year, and then just building upon that core that they've had with CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott, Tyron Smith, who's gone, and Zach Martin, and etc., right? Now, they've actually gone through a complete retooling of the offensive line. There's going to be a new center. There's going to be a new left tackle, right? And never mind the quality of what they've lost there, right? So the offensive line is going to be a question mark for the first time in a long time in Dallas. The running back position is a question mark for the first time in a long time in Dallas, right? The wide receiving core is fairly average outside of CeeDee Lamb. I like Ferguson. I still think Cooks can play, but Cooks is not the same guy. And, it's not potent like it was a couple years ago when they had Cooper and CeeDee and Gallup all playing at the same time with Dalton Schultz, right? And then Zeke and Pollard. So it's just different unit. Zach Martin's aging as well, which you've also got to watch out for. Defensively, a big thing no one talks about is that Dan Quinn left. Dan Quinn was absolutely abysmal in the game against the Packers and Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. But for the rest of the year, in the last 2 or 3 years that he's been there, he's been one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, right? So you've got to talk about what he's done to put Micah Parsons in a position to be an elite player, to, really upgrade Trayvon Diggs' game, to really, just take this defense from a talented unit to an actual really good unit, right? Before Dan Quinn, they were bizarrely not as good as you would have thought because the coaching. Now Mike Zimmer comes in, and Zimmer's a professional, long-time defensive coach, head coach, defensive coordinator in football, formerly in Dallas as well. But he's been out of the league. How good is Mike Zimmer going to be? How does his scheme hold up? How does he adjust to the modern concepts and game that he's been missing out on as of late? That is super wild card-ish, right? I don't know what that's going to take place with that. Gilmore's gone. He's not coming back. He was their best corner last year when Diggs went down. They lost some of their safety depth. Their linebacker position is kind of suspect. Their defensive line, outside of the starting unit of Lawrence and Parsons on the edge, is not as deep as it's been previously. So this is not the same roster, not the same coaching staff. Mike McCarthy, no one looks at him and says, wow, he has an amazing offense. If anything, their offense has kind of been solved. So I don't know, man. The Cowboys just not the same. After the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, believe it or not, were a competitive team last year. They weren't abysmal. You look at their record, and why I say they're going to regress this year, their record last year actually would indicate that they were better than their product. They kind of were able to win some games at the end of regulation where maybe they shouldn't have been able to win. Kind of like the 2022 New York Giants, a team that I think they went 9-8, but they were a 5-win team that somehow miraculously won 9 games. Denver last year was somewhat similar, except they didn't make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I see the Broncos reverting from an average competitive team with a professional starting quarterback to a bad, bottom 3 of the league team with a rookie quarterback. That's what I see with this team. I don't think their roster is that much worse, right? Maybe they lost some big names like Jerry Jeudy, Justin Simmons, some reliable players like Josie Jewell, for example. But I don't necessarily view their roster as significantly worse. I just think, first of all, that I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I don't see in any way, shape, or form, despite Russell Wilson not being an MVP candidate by any means, when you look at his stats, I would be shocked if the production of Russell Wilson last year matched the production of Bo Nix. I think there's going to be a lot more mistakes. I think there's going to be a lot more sacks. I think there's going to be a lot more issues with the offense as a whole. I look at the offense, and I don't see a great tight end. I don't think the running game is potent by any means. It's not terrible because Sean Payton can scheme it up. The O-line is average, I would say. They did lose a very good center. I would also say that. And the wide receiving core, beyond Cortland Sutton, who kind of just had like a career resurgence season, is he going to be as good as last year? Maybe. But he's the only guy they really got that's proven. So the offense is kind of tough, in tough condition. They're going to need a lot of guys to step up in key spots, including receiver, center, quarterback, and other spots. Defensively, even with the guys they had, like Justin Simmons, Josie Jewell, they were not good on defense last year. Like at the beginning of last year, they were one of the worst defenses in NFL history. Now they kind of figured it out. Vance Joseph went to the drawing board, went to the lab, and he figured it out, right? But the defense is not great. They've got a couple good players. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers was a nice pickup, Pat Surtain was a good player. Maybe a couple gems that I'm not including. But this is a below average defense, bottom 5 or 6 offense, right? Like neither side of the ball is going to rank inside my top 20 entering this season comfortably. So I just don't see how they win games. I think they'll be one of those teams that's competitive because of Sean Payton, putting them in a good position to maintain, relevance in terms of they're tight in these games, kind of like my Patriots last year, but they're just not able to win because they don't have enough talent, period. So that's the Denver Broncos. They're probably going to be worse from a record standpoint next year. After that, the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins. They're not going to be number 1 in 2024. And yeah, there's going to be a hype train for them because they just signed OBJ, and they've got Tyreek Hill, and they've got Jalen Waddle, and they've got Tua, and they've got Mostert, and they've got the world's fastest team. They could probably enter the Olympics as a 4x100 unit. But they got no fat people that can do anything of harm. They can't block. They can't rush. And their edge rushers are injured. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, entering the year, injured, right? They've got a lot of big names. They've got a lot of them. Jalen Ramsey, OBJ, Jalen Ramsey's buddy, enters the fold. Tyreek Hill, he's getting a little older. So is Ramsey. I like a lot of the pieces on their team. I think the Kendall Fuller pickup was nice. I love Javon Holland at safety. I think they've got good players. But I think that the core of the team, the offensive line, the defensive line, is extremely suspect. I think the quarterback is average and kind of overrated. And I don't think he's going to be able to carry a team that can't block. And a couple of their key pieces are getting older. And I wonder if they can stay healthy for a full season at this point, including the quarterback. So I look at Miami and I say, they're going to be talented. They're going to have some games where they blow you out by 24 in Miami in the heat. But there's going to have some games where they face good teams. They get beat up because they can't do the things fundamentally that allow you to succeed in the NFL. They need to improve their line of scrimmage play. I don't think they're a playoff team this year right now. So, Miami. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings. This saddens me because I made a video about the Vikings suggesting that they could be underrated. And I won't say that I'm backtracking because I agree with everything I said then. And I still agree there's a world where the Vikings could be a lot better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. There's also a world where they're like bad. And part of it, let me explain, is there's so much wild card nature, right? Like there's a word, volatility is the word. to this team. Quarterback, volatile. Sam Darnold could be good. He could be the best Sam Darnold we've ever seen. He could suck. He could be seeing ghosts. J.J. McCarthy, you see that pass he threw in practice looking like the next Zach Wilson? That could be him. He might not even see the field, right? The O-line, which was phenomenal last year, maybe they regress just a little bit. And maybe Aaron Jones misses 6 games like he did last year. Maybe they miss having reliable third receiver like KJ Osborne. Because maybe Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson, who got injured last year, go down and they don't really have anyone to step up. Maybe the defense that was smoke and mirrors last year, even with improved talent, isn't as good because teams have figured out the scheme and have been able to attack it. So there's arguments for both sides with the Vikings. I could see them squeezing 9-10 wins with great coaching from both sides, which they have. I could also see them winning 6 games, 5 games, and getting worse because they don't have Kirk Cousins anymore. They don't have a top 10 quarterback, a top 12 quarterback that they can reliably count on. They've got the 32nd best quarterback in the league. That could happen, right? So the Vikings are a tricky one. I could see this going either way for them, but I certainly could see a world where they regress. Okay, so the Minnesota Vikings are one of those teams. Next up, the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are tricky, just like the Vikings, but in different ways. So the Saints could be better than last year, but how much better? Right, when you really think about it logically, are they going to be better than what they did last year, 9 wins? Are they? What's the upside to the Saints? Derek Carr magically gets back into 2016 form at, how old is he? 34, 35, 36? I've lost track. Like, what is the case for the Saints? I don't know. Like, the offensive coordinator is going to magically improve Derek Carr being shit in the red zone for 15 years? I don't see how that's going to change. Alvin Kamara is magically going to turn into the guy he was 3 years ago? Like, I don't know, man. That's me thinking of the Saints season. Coughing it up. By the way, I'm playing sick here on this video. So Gronk spiked the like button. But Saints O-line is suspect. Ramczyk is aging. He's the best piece they got. The other pieces, we've got a rookie in there who I like, but how good is he going to be in year 1? The other pieces have been kind of up and down, right, in the inside, the interior, and that's where you have to pressure Derek Carr, right? And then the receiving core behind Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed's a kid that I like, but a little bit unreliable up and down. I just see the offense as kind of average. They're going to have moments, but I could see them struggling as well. Defensively, they've been great in years past, but the D-line is honestly fairly average. I think that there's a case they could be better, but there's a case that Cam Jordan could be worse. There's a case that Chase Young is the 49er Chase Young and not the Commander Chase Young. There's a case that Demario Davis isn't as good. Tyrann Mathieu isn't as good. That Marshawn Lattimore continues to stay off the field. Like, this team, I just feel like their upside is 10 wins. Like, I don't see the ceiling with this team. I just don't. So that's where I say the Falcons have gotten better. The Panthers have gotten better. The Bucs are right there with the Saints. Like, the Saints are probably going to win 7 to 10 games. I really don't see anywhere where they're worse or better than that range. So that kind of makes me say they're probably going to be worse. Like, I don't know. It's not that hard to figure out. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, I know. I'm probably going to make a video about the Steelers too. Just talking about How good are they going to be? How good can they be? And honestly, the Steelers roster is better than last year. But do we really think the Steelers are going to be better than last year? Like in terms of results. Are they going to win a playoff game? Because that's what they would have to do. The last time they won a playoff game was 2016. James White was playing, bro. So, like, I don't know. Are they? Think about it. Is Russell Wilson enough of an upgrade? Is Justin Fields enough of an upgrade at the most important position for them to win a playoff game? Is their O-line that much better for them to win a playoff game? In this AFC, if we're thinking about it that way, in this division where Joe Burrow is now healthy, the Browns are the same team, right? The Ravens are going to be good. In that division, are they going to win 10, 9 games, get back to the playoffs, win a playoff game? I don't really care that they've gotten better at quarterback. Like, realistically, they have. They've gotten better on the offensive line. They've gotten better on defense. But will they be better? I don't know. And the last team that might regress in 2024 is regretfully the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because let's be honest, a majority of people that know the NFL were predicting the Tampa Bay Bucs to not be good last year. So can they do it again this year? Maybe. Maybe not. The division is probably stronger than last year. I brought that up with the Saints. The Saints are about the same team, as I said. The Falcons probably will be better because they've got a much better quarterback. The Panthers are probably going to be better because they can't be any worse. And then you've got the Bucs, who, yeah, they've made some improvements, and yeah, they've lost a couple pieces. But most importantly, can they just do what they did last year? Which, honestly, I don't know. Right? Like, they're not going to get to the divisional round. Like, I almost could guarantee they're not going to win a playoff game. Right? That was more of a matchup playing a terrible, like, fell off of planet Earth Philadelphia team that, like, did not deserve to be in the playoffs, period. Like, they were horrible, right? So, Tampa's not going to be better. So, the only way they go is worse, to be honest. Like, the offensive line is a little bit better. The receiving core has more depth. But Evans and Godwin, another year older, right? The offensive coordinator is different. The other guy got a head coaching gig. After 1 year, he was that good with Baker Mayfield. How is that going to change? How is that going to make them a worse team? I don't know if it's going to make them better, right? Defensively, they're probably going to be okay because Todd Bowles can coach defense, and they've got some good players. Vita Vea, Elijah Cansey, Levante David is still there. Antoine Winfield's a beast. Jamel Dean. But they did lose Carlton Davis, right? Their pass rush is still a little underwhelming to me. Their corners are not great. So the Bucs kind of feel like they'll be in the same range as last year. 7 wins to like 10 wins, somewhere in there. But will they win a playoff game? Will they win their division? Probably both of those answers are no, just based on history. So, yeah, I regretfully inform Bucs fans, probably not going to be as good this year. Those are the teams that I think will be worse in 2024. Let me know in the comment section below where I hit, where I missed. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Peace.